Kenya has opened a new chapter in the way countries trade and is in line with the African Union's bid to see African countries trade with each other. Speaking in Kenya during the end of his visit to the country, the president said the visit was significant as the two countries are economic as well as political powerhouses in their respective regions. He was speaking exclusively to the SABC at the end of his visit to Kenya.
Two regions, an economic powerhouse in the Southern African region, an economic powerhouse in the East African region, and yet the trade imbalance is very huge. Is it an issue of just the trade barriers, or do you think then the two countries need to look at diversifying the produce that they export to each other's countries?
We need to diversify. Diversification must follow the identification of the niche areas or the areas where there are possibilities and opportunities. What is it that we need to do? If, for an example, we've got two countries, what the other country on the other side need, and what therefore do we do here to meet that need? So it needs a number of things to be done, quite a bit of economic research.
On the domestic front, President, you formed a ministerial committee to deal with the ongoing university crisis. Kindly explain to us what would be the role of this committee and what differentiates it from the commission that had been formed earlier?
With regard to education, since last year there were protests which led to me meeting the leadership of the universities as well as the leadership of the students together with the Department of Higher Education. The discussions ended up where we said the fees were not going to be increased this year. We will absorb that. But in the meantime, I established a commission to look into the question as raised of the free education. That commission has been sitting since last year, and people have been going to the commission to make submissions, either to justify or to say where the money will come if that was the agreement. Is it the right thing to do? Partly because partially this is being implemented in South Africa, the free education thing. In greatest details, I think I explained this yesterday. And therefore the issue of discussing the fees, etc., is happening. But at the center of it is the commission that has to produce a report. I think the progress report is going to be given in November, which deals with this issue very specifically. What has happened is that the students are protesting. They protest as if there is no process addressing this matter, and yet there is a process headed by a judge with people with expertise to deal with this matter. Now, they are pushing protests, and their approach is quite a problematic one, because they are not necessarily negotiating. For an example, they ought to go and make a presentation why they say this and give the details. But when they speak in public, they say we are not going to stop until our demand is accepted. Now, you don't negotiate like that. Now, that has led to a situation of violent protests, which has seen one life gone in Wits University. And we saw a bus a few days ago being burnt. We saw students fighting with stones. That has become violent. So we have then established this small committee to deal with the situation as it is, to calm down the situation, to engage whoever needs to be engaged. There are people who are part of it, who are part of the discussions. There are some institutions, there are some people who are talking to students. They must talk to the students to stop the violence. If people want to protest, it's a constitutional right, but you can't abuse that constitutional right and injure people and inconvenience other people. For an example, there are students who want to study and continue with their academic process. Now, you can't stop them. It is their constitutional right. Now, this committee, which is headed by a minister in the presidency, is dealing with that specific issue to discuss anything, including persuading those who wanted to make a contribution towards what is going to be an outcome of the commission. So they're not dealing with the fees. That's not their task. Their task is to deal with the current situation with whoever is part of what is happening. So that is the distinction between them and the work of the fees. The fees is a different matter. If people want to discuss the fees, as they discuss with them, they will direct them to the commission, where they must make presentation. Theirs is to deal with the people, to stop violence, to normalize the situation. That is the job of this small committee.
All right, there we go. That's a conversation in Kenya that was had by our reporter there, who was talking to our President Jacob Zuma. That's something quite interesting to listen to. All right.